Good morning. At this time, I would like to introduce one of the prep brothers, Drew Bergman, who has bravely volunteered to share his personal struggle with depression here today. Drew.
Just over a year ago, January 1st, 2010, around 5 in the morning, was the second time I attempted suicide. I downed a bottle of medications in hopes of ending everything, and as you can see, it didn't work. Even though doctors seem to think that my body should not have been able to handle it. My goal here today is not to gain sympathy or to have people feel bad for me, but rather to help you realize that life is more burdensome for kids with depression than others. And that your interactions with people can and do impact them in ways that you may not understand. Also, for those of you who find yourselves in the midst of similar struggles, I hope to help you realize that these struggles are real, important, and meaningful, and that there are other more effective and less harmful ways about going feeling better than I have used. My decision to kill myself did not come about randomly. My depression began readily apparent in the 7th grade when my family began to crumble. My father's alcoholism, addiction to pain medication, and a lifelong problem with depression prevented him from being a positive presence in my life. He allowed his own struggles to tear himself away from my family and I. My sister struggles with her own fears of depression, which led to an ongoing battle with anorexia and bulimia. For this, she sacrificed many friendships and her ability to compete as a Division I soccer player at St. Joe's University. My brother sought control of this whole situation by resorting to anorexia and also drug use while remaining on the dean's list at Fordham University. I became violent with family and distant from friends. Once a good and quickly improving athlete, I quit soccer and basketball. The people that I used to love and spend time with no longer fit into this increasingly sad world that I was creating for myself. On top of this, my grades dropped significantly. All of this was due to my depression. I found myself without friends, without family, without motivation, and without any sense of purpose. As I began to lose grip on reality and lost sight of everything important, I began to compensate in ways that were neither helpful nor safe. At age 13, I began to experiment with cutting myself. For that short period of time, it silenced everything that was going on. And finally, one night, when I was in 7th grade, I had my first attempt at suicide. I came to prep hoping to leave all this behind me, thinking that a new environment would help me change without any effort. But I was unwilling to make the changes to my behavior and attitude necessary for progress. Very quickly, my old ways brought about old habits. I still lacked motivation and self-esteem, and I quickly fell back into my old self without ever really having left. My grades were terrible. I ignored closest friends from home and found no real reason to pursue new friendships at school. Around the same time, my friendship with my sister became estranged, the one family member with whom I still felt comfortable. She encountered troubles her freshman year of college, and she was sent to rehab for an eating disorder. I found myself slitting open those once healed scars on my wrists, adding new marks on my legs, and even on my stomach, just about anywhere I could find room. It seems crazy that a person could do that to themselves, but someone struggling with depression isn't a logical thought process. Every time I stepped foot in the shower, the razors were taken out and the cuts went from a few to over 100. The longer this went on, and the more these feelings began to build up, the more I lost the desire to live. So instead, I searched for ways out. The razors were no longer just something to shave my face. The 3rd floor math room window was no longer just used to look out over Thompson Avenue. The Ben Franklin Bridge was no longer just a way of getting me to and from school. And medicine no longer just to get rid of a headache. These all became obsessions of ways that I was going to kill myself. This day being January 1st. This day, January 1st, is engraved in my memory. I spent a total of 16 days in 2 different psychiatric hospitals. Unsure if I was safe at home, I was contained to 2 rooms and was watched throughout the day, every single day. Not only did I feel embarrassed at having to be treated like an infant and ashamed to look my family members in the eyes during visitation hours, I was completely drained both emotionally and physically. I was at rock bottom, could look nowhere else but up. It was during those 2 weeks that I realized just how important I was to so many people around me, and how much there was left for me to do with my time here. It was time to change something. I spent many days in Skronsky Gillespie's office figuring out how I was going to keep myself alive. At that time, this was an everyday struggle. Mr. Skronsky helped talk to all my teachers so that they had an understanding of why I was falling behind. Dr. Gillespie and I went over goals so that suicide would no longer be a consideration. He helped me to admit to the process of recovery would not be easy, that it was ultimately a worthwhile project. He helped me rediscover why life is important. The support at the prep is amazing, and I can honestly say if it were not for those 2 men and the support of many others, I would not be here today. I have this crazy background, yet I come to school every day. This year I have a high GPA, I'm employed, and cherish my friends. What I'm trying to say is before today, no one would ever be able to get this story just from looking at me. I go to football games, I go to dances, I go to parties. I'm an everyday kid. 20% of teenagers suffer from depression. That means there are 200 prep students who are in the same situation, more than 1/5 of our school. In my outpatient group, there have been LaSalle, Hallahan, Newman, and prep kids. For the 80% that aren't dealing with depression, I appreciate you listening, but know that there is the other 20% of kids who are struggling. I know that most of you don't enjoy talking about your emotions, but my guess is that you would listen to a friend, especially if it was this important. When I received a call at 2 in the morning that my sister had also attempted suicide, it was the worst feeling in the world to know that I wasn't there for it. For the kids who are struggling with depression, I can't explain how important it is to confide in someone. Depression is such a lonely experience, and one person can make the difference in keeping a depressed teen alive.
Thank you, Drew, for your courage, for your fortitude, for your generosity in sharing your story. I think that all of us will feel empowered in the power of your voice. So thanks again. At this time, everyone, we're going to recite a pledge that commits us to taking care of ourselves and others here in our community against depression. So I'd ask you to take out your cards, and with strong hearts and strong voices, mellifluously and euphoniously, together, let's recite what's on this white card, which is also going up here on these 2 screens. Why don't we stand up to do this, too? And here we go, once it gets on the screen. Oh, you're blocking it. Okay. Guys, sorry. Okay. Alright, so let's just wake up the neighbors as we do this. I recognize that I have adults in my life who care about my physical, mental, and spiritual well-being. My parents, aunts, uncles, teachers, coaches, counselors, and friends' parents are willing to listen and help me in any way they can. I pledge that when I feel overwhelmed by academic, social, or family pressures, I will reach out to one or more of these adults. I further recognize that I am part of a larger community in which my peers often struggle with many pressures, including, but in no way limited to, academic, social, or family pressures. Additionally, some may struggle with extreme stresses in their lives, such as depression. I am at a crossroads in my life, stuck halfway between childhood and adulthood. Keeping this in mind, I am too young to help a friend battle these pressures and depression on my own. I am, however, adult enough to reach out to others on behalf of a friend to get him or her help. I pledge that when I see the warning signs of depression in a friend, I will bring them to the attention of an adult in my life, and together we will help my friend. Good job. And what we need you to do is sign this card, have a parent sign this card, hold on to it, someplace special.